Welcome, welcome, welcome. That's how the stream started, by the way.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice. This guy, he's awesome.
Welcome to MySec Southfield. My name is Brett Hansen. I'm the Southfield Director. That's really weird to say now, but I am now the Director instead of Coordinator. MySec Jackson meets the second Tuesday of the month. MySec Lansing and Detroit meet the second Wednesday of the month. And MySec Southfield and Grand Rapids meet the second Thursday of the month. So if there is a city near you, there is a MySec chapter you can visit for awesome security talks. If you're interested in security, there's a lot of other places you can visit, such as ISC Squared, North Oakland ISSA, Motor City ISSA, and Lansing ISSA. They meet multiple different times throughout the month. If you're interested, come see me. I'll give you some details. We're currently meeting at Town Square Foods and Spirits. Please pass your thanks to the staff that provided this great room and great service. Be part of MySec. If you have a topic for a talk, let me know. We would like to, or if you have something you'd like to see, also let me know, because we want to make sure that we're hitting the target demographic and market of people who want to see security talks. We're looking for people who enjoy writing about security, who can post blogs to the MySec website. So if you had a recent talk, if you want to turn that into a blog post, by all means, reach out and we will get that onto the website. And announcements, we have the MySec Social, which is Thursday the 27th at LFG Royal Oak. And do we have our social coordinator? If you wouldn't mind standing up, introducing yourself to the chapter. This is Nicole Legg, our new social coordinator. What's your handle? Dark Snarktress on Twitter as well as on Slack, and that brings me up to the next point. If you haven't joined MySec Slack, by all means, please do so. If you go to mysec.us, scroll down towards the bottom, there is a link that you can click on for your personal invitation, and then join the MySec Slack channels. And there's all types of really cool information out there, like call for papers. There's a blue team, red team, Detroit chapter, all types of channels to communicate in. Other announcements? DEF CON is coming up for those who are going, and there's a channel for that as well. Yeah. I think it's called Vegas.
Who's actually in that channel? It will remain empty, probably, especially during DEF CON.
Who, by a show of hands, who's going to DEF CON? Oh, wow.
Well, Ollie's not here, so.
Okay, any job postings that people would like to share? No? Anybody looking for jobs? Well, Tech Systems is right there.
Over 30,000.
All right.
Yeah, not a lot. No.
Any other special events? Nope. All right. Well, without further ado, we have Brad here on Identity, the New Edge, a conversation about Identity and IAM. You can pin yourself.
This is going to be great.
How does that go?
Gotta stay limber. Loosen up for the talk. Do we have any idea on the volume of it? Because I project. I'm one of those people.
I will make sure it's at the appropriate levels.
Okay. All right. Hi, all. So this talks about identity. It's the new edge. A lot of people were always talked about the edge as the perimeter of your network. That would be your firewall, your router, whatnot. And now we're seeing is that there's been a shift on things. We're starting to move a little bit to the cloud. So there's a little bit of touch on that, but I'm really going to be talking about IAM and identity and what those things are and how those actually play within our business organizations. All right. So classic disclaimer. I am here somewhat of a court of my own company, but I am not talking for them. I am talking for myself. They are welcome to take on my opinions if they want. I added a couple pieces to this, so that's some interesting. All right, so who am I? The classic slide. I am a DevSecOps kind of person. I like automating stuff. I'm not entirely sure how everyone's calling it these days. I'm just going to call it big ball, techie, netty, devy, webbly, oppy, socky stuff. Nailed it. Very Whovian of me. I know, I nailed it. So there's I work on things and I do stuff. Yeah. A lot of you guys know I kind of do some stuff I can't talk about, but this is something I can definitely talk about. I'm happy. I'm excited about it. I've started training on it. So I know some things. I'm not the best expert on it, but I'm made 150 slides on it, so we should be pretty good at it. So full disclosure, I do work for IAM Integrator. It's what Uber Ether does. That's the company I work for. Sam works for them too. I'm not shilling. I'm not selling anything here. I'm not naming any brands. I'm going to just talk about what IAM does for you and your business and why you should probably think about it. There will be memes. There will be lots of memes. It's to keep it light, keep it interesting, keep it going. So yes, I'll get on with it. We'll move on. So it's time we had to talk about identity. Not the other talk, the identity talk. What is identity? Well, it's this. We all know this. It's our driver's license. It's also what we do online, who we are and what we act with. Email, we all know email. That's a regex. Shout out to Brian right there. Our Google presence. We all know this. Google definitely knows who we are in a lot of different ways. So, what does that look like? Well, we got Facebook. This is our Facebook account. Looks like this, anonymous. We all know Joe Smith, that guy. What our email address, kind of the contents of that, what is that? Our Google account, there's way more of this, they're just not showing it. Some of you, a little more technical, you may think kind of OAuth, because that's kind of how you get into things, and that's really kind of the meat of what you do. That's what your identity is online. Those of us who probably know this, that's Active Directory right there. And if you don't know, we'll probably dig into it a little bit more. No, the cross isn't working, Sam. Can't make it go away. So identity is who you are. It's also what you say about yourself. Facebook, Google. It's also what others say about you. It's also what others know about you. It's also how you get into places and how you do things like Active Directory and what OAuth provides. It's also what lets you do your job. Because if you didn't have an Active Directory credential, you really couldn't do a whole lot, could you? So OAuth and Active Directory, those are two things we can kind of talk about. That really relies upon trust. So let's follow a new hire, we'll call him John, and see how he gets his identity. So John, let's say, is an HR contractor, works for he's going to do some tax work for this new corp that he's going into. So who handles the bulk of bringing John on board on this company? HR? You would think that immediately, right? The hiring manager, probably, getting him set up, getting going. John's manager. Maybe, that person should have a pretty big impact on him because he or she is giving him all what he's supposed to be doing. The training staff, a couple of weeks, they get all training material, get them on board with doing all that stuff. Who's the actual one who does all this real work to get John into the corporation doing stuff? Introducing the corporate workhorse. These guys, we know them. They're us, they're friends of ours. This is the IT staff, we know them. So let's take a look through the eyes with a typical employee, how this actually plays. Well, the magical IT fairy appears, drops an asset in, and things work, and I can get into stuff. No one really sees it. It's opaque. We look and we see, wow, the animations are a little janky on this one. So all these people right here, everyone in the company, they have to go through IT in order to actually do pretty much anything within the corporate infrastructure. It's a giant bottleneck. Just nobody thinks about it. It's a huge tidal wave coming over towards IT of all these people needing stuff, needing permissions, and we can dig into that a little bit more. But we're familiar with this. This isn't so bad. We're used to this. We've been doing this for years, right? And we have this nice little policy here that says, I get this amount of time to bring on hires and this amount of time that I can actually get people off their credentials, right? So about that, let's go back to John. We got John here, and we got the hiring manager, Jane. We got the tech lead, Jeff. So Jane's probably got to line some things up with the tech lead, make sure John, when he John gets on, that he's got everything he needs technically. So, but Jane's probably got this little corporate overlord here, the VP of IT or VP of HR, try and get John on board and make sure everything's working the way, I don't know, the new system was working here. Oh, except we got to get the HR dude, Tad, here. He's got to get all the training stuff and all the, like, new, HR stuff. Make sure he's got all of his, I'm blanking on this one.
Corporate policy?
Probably corporate policy, anti-harassment, all the NDAs, all the other kind of stuff we got to do. And he's got to line up with VP to say, hey, yeah, this person signed everything and has got it all going. Except, Megan's on vacation, and we got a little bit of a bottleneck here. Oh, she's back from vacation. And then finally, this has probably been all 2 weeks of going all through this stuff, and it finally gets to the tech person 2 weeks later. Oh, hey, John's here already. Can you set up his account? Well, poor tech person just has to scramble and do this kind of stuff. Oh, crap, he's got to go through purchasing and try and get that asset. So and then he has to line up back with Jane to get back with John to get him his asset and his account. Does anyone seem this seems kind of like a giant mess? I know maybe I'm probably pushing this a little hard, but a lot of companies are exactly like this or worse. And this is just a small company. This is like a small team. So yeah, it's complex. Needlessly complex. Anyway, the people who think this is fine, well, it's got management stamp right on top of it because they don't see any of this. They don't see all the worker bees going around sweating, losing their minds, So, small corporation, this has maybe happened 1 or 2 times at most. Let's scale this up. Little Dragon Ball Z little reference there. So, let's go with the corporate. First, we'll step back, take a little bit, look at what John's going to actually go with this big, huge corporation here. So John gets hired, works for the corporate overlords, and he's going to get fired, quit, retired, terminate. He's going to leave the company eventually. Okay, so that's about 4.6 years, medium tenure, but if he's younger, it's going to be more on the order of 3 years or so. So, wow, again, the animation's a little out of whack here. Sorry about that. So I just took this from the government. They're basically showing us, on average, let's get the number we got here. All right, so about 40-some on average for turnover rate. That's 40% of your company is going to be turned over on average. Now that's for everyone for the industry, and there's obviously some skewing going on here. But let's just kind of fly with it, right? So a little bit of math. That's just onboarding. Okay. So math. Let's just go with math. Let's not dig into the weeds on this too much. So for about a 10,000 employee company, we could roughly say, that's about 34 new hires or removals a day. That's a lot. That's a lot of people. That's kind of nuts. Let's go back to John. Let's see how this whole thing goes. I'm going to slip through this pretty quick because I didn't bother naming all this, but it's a giant goddamn mess. What does this purchasing guy even do? I want to know. They just get in the way is my thought. The IT guy probably had a little bit of a bender on Wednesday night. Starts just having a bad day, not feeling great. Oh, crap. All right, so he's going to go ahead and run this script or this in-house IAM thing kind of to just build this thing up. Oh, crap, it's broken. Somebody changed something in one of the policies, and it's now a little outside of compliance. And he kind of gets his credentials all together, kind of, sort of, except he can't do his job. This is maddening. So that's just John. It's just his first day. Scale this out to, IT's got a lot of tasks, and we can't just put all of IT of just onboarding. It's a little nuts. Well, we got the database we got to worry about. We got file servers we got to worry about. Just general maintenance, patches, IVSMs. Oh no, the internet's going out. That's not quite right. There's a lot IT has to focus on. This is just, I don't know how anyone deals with it. We throw John in the mix on this thing, and it's nuts. So, needless to say, this is complexity to the complexity. I don't know how we do this, but we somehow we get through, and somehow security and compliance, this all somehow works together. So this is just permissions management side of things. That's just dealing with permissions. We all know IT's got a lot more stuff. We have projects, we got migrations, we got some new server that's going to be brought online. So we got debugging, we got remediation. This is probably got a 50-hour standard work week. Some of us probably do 60, maybe more. A lot of times, I'm sorry, another time this week, we got to ask you to stay over. You get any other compensation out of this? Probably not. We're all salaried. That's not gonna how it plays. We just work. So more users, more problems. It gets, sorry about that, Brett, just beamed you with a laser. Yeah, so this just gets a little crazy. Just more and more things heaped on top of this. Oh, that's where the animations went. And that's, well, again, okay, there's a little, that's not me. That's just IT. We're getting hit by this gigantic tidal wave. I'm sorry, this tidal wave slide was a little early to the game. This is giving you anxiety, or you felt this anxiety, you know what I'm talking about. But wait, there's more. We got third-party stuff. We got Blinky Box, name it, whatever new security thing we got in place that's got to work with identity. It's got to deal with bringing somebody on to actually access this box. And we got cloud stuff. We got word soup over here about all the other different kind of things that we didn't build in-house, that we got to make sure everything works together. If anyone wants to know what that's building access control, I got to learn that the other week. That deals with the heating and humidity of things. Like I said, word soup. It just goes on from there. So where do they have an account? Where do they need an account? It's really kind of getting into some questions here. And man, my slides are a little out of scope here. Sorry. Well, all this sucks, but it's not world ending. So things get delayed, but time equals money. So we got to go a little deeper for Mr. Management here to say, hey, we need to do better on this. This is security talk after all, so let's talk a little about security things. Here's some nice statistics. Some of this stuff, I don't know if any of you have seen, but $158 of average per lost or stolen record. Scale it up to how many records are actually stolen. Millions. So it's like 158 million. 1 in 7 employees actually sell their credentials for $150? That's ridiculous.
You get $150 for them.
Oh, that burns.
What was the question in that survey? If I give you $150, can I have your password? Because I would say yes.
No, not my password.
I would just change my password and drop it the money.
Brad, I take that money for your password.
So one I thought was interesting here is 89% believe they're now at risk from an insider threat. I want to know about the other 11%. What are they reading? They have their head in the sand? What's going on with that?
It's the NSA.
The other 11.
I don't know if they're part of that, the business of labor statistics. I don't think they're part of that analogy. So 32% of the VDBR of 2019 breaches are now phishing. Time for a drink of water. So what does that mean? Well, it means Mr. Hackerman, who normally breaks into stuff, hits you with a vulnerability. Well, it's kind of a little passe now. They're logging in with your people's credentials. Yes, we know phishing is bad, and we know, all right, two-factor auth may save it, but how many people have two-factor auth on all the things that are facing the internet? I mean, but then again, there's internal stuff that you may not have two-factor auth on. This is a problem. And also, we've heard about some of the war stories where some of the hackers get two-factor auth credentials by just mimicking some IT guy saying, hey, I'm going to be sending you a token. Can you send it? Can you just tell me what that is out loud? So, but do you really know how bad it is? So let's go back to this gigantic nightmare. It was crazy. We all know an attempt was made at trying to get things going with that PowerShell. So I'm going to call this the onboarding busted kill chain. We have all seen the cyber kill chain. I'm going to say, so we got the PowerShell here that broke. Well, IT's going to manually fix it. This wasn't so bad. It kind of broke the credentials. But again, man, animations just aren't working out for me today. So the IT manually fixing it, hey, we mostly get it. Call John and manager, we over-provision. So you guys know what over-provisioning is? Just means where someone actually gets more access than they really should, or they get duplicate access on it. So when they're working on a project temporarily, maybe they're taken off of it later and it's not a good fit. But if they're over-provisioned, that's kind of hard to pull back. We'll take a little bit more into that later. And then we get exfil, which is everyone's favorite part of the kill chain. So this is a real problem. This happens, is where they can't remediate people having too much access. The whole exfil, this is something John wasn't even supposed to have, as we were talking about with some of that over-provisioning. Or maybe it was just some part of group or if anyone's ever dealt with Active Directory, any raise of hands here? Anyone deal with it? All right, so you know what I'm talking about, where the groups just are oddly named, or you don't know what exactly all this is supposed to do. You're not supposed to know this stuff. You're IT. You don't run the entire business. So yeah, this is a giant headache. We all know this is. So brings up some interesting questions. First, how do we fix this mess? We'll get into that. But why is IT doing all the bulk? Yeah, turn it off. Just put it, bury it 6 feet, take us off the net. We'll be good. Yeah, that's security guy thought right there. We didn't have any customers, we wouldn't have a problem. So another big question is, why is IT doing all this onboarding? What does IT have anything to do with HR? Why do we know anything about HR? This doesn't make any sense. Why are they doing that? Why is it to know everything about you in order to actually get you to be able to do your job? Like that's bananas. I mean, a lot of people hate talking to the IT person, let alone want to tell anything about themselves to that IT person. So why does IT have all the controls for this workflow to try and bring somebody on board or take them off? Why is it IT needs to know everything about the company and the staff just to do their job so someone else can do their job? Another good question, how do we empower other people besides IT, for your love, because someone other than IT can actually do this? And is that even a real possibility? Because we all know managers love this stuff. This is great. I mean, this is their most favorite thing to do, is just dive into Active Directory. We should just do that, right? Just give them access to this thing, give them training on it, and then they can onboard their own people. I mean, they should know what all this stuff is, what all these groups are, right? So let's talk a little bit about identity access management. So what exactly is identity access management? Look at Wikipedia. We get this long, really drawn out answer. Really, it's about giving the right individuals what they need at the right times for the right reasons. That's really what it comes down to it. It's a bit of removing IT from it and giving their manager somebody who actually knows what they need to do their job, give them that kind of stuff, and maybe do some translation to it. Make it a little easier for it. It's not some obscure name. It's a name they gave it. It's a name their team, or during a meeting, they actually, hey, this is what we're going to call it. You call it Project Orpheus. It's called Project Orpheus. All right, yeah. And that makes it easy, so everyone identifies what that is. So great, what does it actually do? We've seen this, turns Active Directory, turns it into this. Oh man, it's got a lot of colors. Ooh, there's a pie chart right there. Everyone loves pie charts. Managers love pie charts.
That's a donut chart, and I still hate it.
It is telling valid information, pending, approved, rejected.
Such dashboard, very well.
Much wow. So yeah, but we all know managers love these single panes of glass, and it gives them all this kind of information about what they need to do. So this is actually from an identity access management that will remain nameless, but if anyone's actually dealt with this, they know exactly what that is. So we're empowering office staff. That's great. So let's take a little look into how this is going. So we got John over here, and you got his Active Directory credentials. Where did that come from? It came from Tech Lead Jeff and Hiring Manager Jane. All right, great. So I just put some letters here, and I put some stuff together. Great, Brad. That's really opaque. What does that maybe even look like? Well, first of all, is actually taking, if anyone's seen Active Directory, that whole, it doesn't really say a whole lot. It doesn't give context to that. It doesn't say these different pieces and parts of really fleshing out that identity. And it doesn't give us that ability. I mean, there's this giant text box we can fill stuff in, but that's useless. Oh, we can put their phone, we could put their phone number in, but whoever looks up in LDAP for their phone number? Nobody. Maybe the DBA, he looks it up in the data, he looks it up there. And the email, well, we all do that through Exchange, so that's not a big deal. But it gives it a nice pane of glass, someone that can actually fill out what their department is. What is their status? Well, that's not a thing you put in Active Directory. You know, what are they? The temporary employee or the contractor? And it gives that ability to actually fill that in. What is that? And what does that mean in the company? What kind of permissions does that give? Tells the manager, wow, and I think you can put that in Active Directory, but I guarantee you nobody looks for that person's manager through Active Directory, through LDAP, to try and find any of that stuff. And it gives them their general access, but it's also like in human readable terms. Hey, general HR user, general personnel files. They can actually deal with like PII and such. And Project Orpheus, whatever the hell that is. I'm an IT guy. I sure as hell don't know what it is. So I don't need to know. That's a great thing. She gets to fill that out. She knows what that is. Jane has every idea what all the context of this actually means. So it takes all this great, wonderful context, throws it through IAM, talks to the Active Directory, and turns it into all this other stuff that Jane has no idea what it is, but we all know what stuff is. Read-write permissions on MTFS. We know, but the great thing is we don't have to do any of that stuff. That's already been teed up. With all this stuff, that feeds into there, tells us what all that stuff is. We don't have to touch it. Just leave it alone. Does its thing. Also ropes in all this other third-party stuff. Jane gets to fill all that stuff in, and it just goes right over to John with all the permissions he needs. I think it's the remote. I think that's the problem. The remote's acting funny. So let's dig into the permissions a little bit. So we all know MTFS. We got the whole read, write, modify, control, special permissions. But it really looks like this. This is the entirety of it all. Breaking all that stuff down, this is even more under the heap that we have to deal with on file permissions. Oh, and here's a nice little matrix on what all that actually really means. Don't have to worry about that anymore. You set it up in IAM, you tee it up. It's a lot of work, but it's worth it. It solves the whole onboarding process. Manager just ties this person on to these things, and they're off to work. They got a login, they get an email, get all the things they need. So dive in a little bit in the idea of over-provisioning. This is a major problem. Not too many people actually understand what that name is, oh my God, look at John. He's got all this access that someone, oh man, they even did a write on the file. They did a direct permission read. If anyone's actually dealt with diving through and trying to find someone's permissions, trying to find a direct permission is like finding a needle in a haystack of needles. Like you have to go to that actual file to find that they have that direct permissions. It's a nightmare to find. So we got all, someone have a question? Nope, all right. We got all these crazy permissions. IT has no idea what this means. Task leaders, I guess that means they have write permissions, but I don't know why. As an IT person, I have no clue on any of this. Nobody has any context on this. This person who maybe made this group is probably gone. So let's run it through an IAM, what they're supposed to do. And then tend to just simplify this down to the basic, what does this person need to do? And often they just kind of obscure this, or they'll change it into a readable, what is this, an action? This HR group is affecting this department. It's a group, and that person needs read. Hey, they also need write. That's it. Often a lot of the IAMs, what they'll do is they'll just keep those groups because they have maybe tied in other third-party projects or pieces. They'll leave them alone, but they'll remove all the file permissions they have to deal with. Just steps it back and causes minimal issues. So I don't know if that's wet your whistle a little bit. Solves a lot of these file permissions, you have a better idea who has access to what and how they're dealing with things. Let's talk about compliance. Everyone loves talking about compliance. That's just good old stuff. So let's get a scenario here of John. He writes some PII. Oh, that's a right place. He can write it in the personnel. That's a locked down file. Nobody can really read that. That's only HR staff. Except he screws up, wasn't wearing his glasses, and he wrote to the public folder. Ah, crap. We got some PII. We got social security numbers popping out in the public that everyone can read, where it's right there next to the, the anti-harassment PDF that everyone ever to read. Oh, crap. How are we going to undo this mess? This is a gigantic exclamation point here. Because I don't know if anyone knows, that's just a nightmare scenario. But if we were dealing with an IAM solution here, John would write that onto the file server. The IAM would pull that information from the file server, send a report to John's boss going, hey, John just did something with PII in a way I don't think is right. I'm going to let them know. So that's pretty great. Let's go with another scenario. We got data scientist Brian. We don't know anyone. It's not named the same way. It's different. John wants to hand this off to this data scientist because he needed some information, except maybe he put too much information. It's more just names. Oh, no, there's social security numbers on there. It's supposed to be employee IDs, anything you want. Any information that Brian should not really see. He sends it in an email. Oh, man, see what the IAM does, it actually pulls stuff from the Exchange server, does another report, sends it to compliance. Compliance can end up dealing with how they want, however the policy dictates on it. But it just does that automatically. Nobody had to sit there, run a PowerShell script, figure out, hey, who's doing what? How did this happen? 2 weeks later, oh, hey, we have a compliance issue here. Someone did this. 2 weeks is a long time. Someone could have just grabbed all the information and just left. Or Brian could have just, I don't know, sold it on the black market or dark. For $150. Another crazy scenario that probably too many people don't think about, the admins. The admins have godlike powers, and they can do whatever they want with it and delete the logs if they want. Nobody really has too much control on them. And the only reason probably some of them don't abuse it is they're too damn busy doing their job to actually do anything ridiculous. So take a look at that. So Tech Guy Steve's friends with John. He gave him special executive powers, I don't know, executive internet access, or can see somebody that John doesn't like, one of the executive staff, and he wants to snoop on them, starts digging into some of that information. Well, IAM pulls stuff from Active Directory that, hey, that GPO just got put on to John, who, that's a pretty powerful GPO right there. And we should probably let compliance know that. And it gets in a report. It could be right then and there. You can put it on a digest. What are the IAM provides? Another one. So we got Tech Guy Steve. He turns on God mode. He goes to domain access, domain administrator. It starts, trolling through the file server, grabbing what he wants, reads whatever he wants, starts digging through the file server, and pulls all kinds of information. That's a big problem right there. That guy could go find an extradition law that doesn't apply to, I don't know, Thailand or something. Just fly over there and sell all this shit on the dark web. But that should definitely go right over to compliance. And I bet compliance should probably just fire that dude. I would fire him immediately. Or worse, we got some bad actors in the network. They're accessing the file server. And a lot of them, they may automate stuff, or they may end up using a tool. And that could be pretty loud, and that will hit the file server. Send up a nice compliance report, and we actually can do some kind of do an incident report. Start digging in. It's something you can start acting right away, rather than 2 weeks later, we started looking through the logs and Splunk, and crap, we found somebody doing bad things on the file server. Let's get to the bread and butter here. What security people really like dealing with. We start talking about automating this stuff, because I can tell you right now, I don't want to sit here and wait for a compliance report to go, you should go do something. Why didn't we just stop it right then and there? Stop them from doing terrible things. Go back to Steve doing his God mode thing. Well, it can go right over to IAM, can start acting right on the Active Directory. Turn God mode right off. No, DA is now locked. That account doesn't do anything anymore until we remediate this entire problem. I'm sure some of you are like, oh no, there are some things that will be shut down on DA. You shouldn't really be tying things to DA. DA should be like not a service level account. Make a different service level account. That's a different talk, but really don't use DA for things like this. A God mode could be anything else. Could just be more than DA. It could be one of these other service level accounts. Someone logs in as a service level account and they don't have a change request. Again, that should be something that should immediately ban. Stop that right now. Someone didn't fill out a change request against compliance. And oh yeah, we get that report. We can actually have a discussion with Steve of, Mr. Steve, what were you doing? What were you doing on the file server there?
Bad things.
Bad things. We could talk about ransomware. That's a real scary one. That's a real issue. Now, we've talked about, City of Baltimore. They have a problem. And this is pretty loud and fast, starts hitting things. You can even put a little trigger on this thing. Hey, someone's read something at an inhuman speed, like something down to the second. Someone's reading a file every 3 seconds. Nobody does that. That's a really inhuman task. Go ahead and lock down that account, whatever that ransomware is using, that stops it right there. Maybe you lose like 20 files. It's better than losing the 1,000,000 files you have on the file server. And again, yeah, we got a nice little compliance report. Again, we have the bad actor here. You could be using an automated tool, hitting all these file servers. A lot of these guys sometimes, they're just lazy and they're loud, and they just script stuff, watch back, watch the matrix code go by, and pull the stuff. Again, just lock that account. Stop it right then and there. Animations. I like to call this a combo breaker. Just screws up hackers right there and there. It stops the ransomware. But let's put the brakes on for a little bit. Slow down. I've been kind of selling this as like big, huge panacea. Man, this can solve all kinds of problems. This is great. Why don't we all use IAM? Well, a lot has to go. I don't trust them. It's all about trust. There's a lot that has to happen before you put an IAM in there. Especially, it's talking to your Active Directory. Like we've talked about that. That's kind of how, that's your passport to actually getting your job done. You don't want to just throw that in there like a blinky box and start, yeah, this will work. This will be great. You're going to have a bad time. It's going to suck. It's a huge mountain to climb here. You got to have like I said, just not a blinky box you put in. It's not a panacea. It's complicated. There's a lot going on. So this is actually from an IAM, real name, nameless, that actually, this is how their architecture, they design it. There's a lot of moving parts in here. We got all the juicy nuggets over here. We got our cloud storage, Active Directory, mail systems, file servers. You can even have application servers that integrate into this. If it's homegrown, you'll need to make your own API. But a lot of this stuff just slides into place with some of the biggest players out there. I won't go into this all that too much because we could be here for weeks. Literally, training will be for weeks. So you need to have meetings, management. This is just like any major change you're going to have in your entire security posture, how you get to deal with things. You got to have long, boring meetings about what does this actually mean, what fits into our company, how does things fit together, what is our compliance we actually have to follow through on. And there's a lot of tuning. You get it in place, great. It's 8 months later, you got it in place, it's up, it's running. Yeah, a year probably worth of tuning. Make sure that this thing doesn't trip anything or start knocking things over, start taking servers offline, or locking accounts that you don't want to lock. But it's worth it. Any questions? Brian?
So I have a couple.
Sure. I know I kind of breezed through it.
Yeah, so at the beginning you talked about how IT is kind of right now the crux of the onboarding of scripts and what have you, that should be pushed over more towards HR, hiring managers, or just the actual manager of the person being onboarded. From an IAM perspective, what would that look like? I'm assuming that those individuals, HR, hiring
So that would be IAM. I could show different things, but it would mean nothing because each of them are a little different. But basically, it produces a lot of them are going towards a web interface, something a lot of us are probably more familiar with, what you would like with Facebook. But there's a lot more ability for them to fill out what that looks like, all the context and all the data and things that they'll have access to.
So it becomes like a template for the job
Yeah.
title?
So and some of them, there's just a lot of different IAM providers. Some of them don't provide that web interface, and it's much more complex. You need like dev team to build it. And some of them, it's a lot more fleshed out. There's templates, there's workflow designs to it that get you through that process. So that's why I don't have a ton of, oh, hey, this is what this is. Otherwise, it'd be, I don't know, like an Oracle talk about or Oracle identity product, and I'd be shilling things, or SailPoint, and this is the SailPoint interface to it.
So does that mean that like a company would have to have an IAM engineer on board that would like build that GUI with the back end?
No, it depends on the IAM solution you provide. You go with. If you obviously go cheaper you go, the more you probably get to build it out yourself.
Okay.
But if you have one that's more flushed out, it's done. You may, some of them are kind of pre-built, some basic templates, but then you can customize the templates. So you can say, hey, if we're bringing on a contractor, that template looks different. There's different questions we'll have to ask versus, a general employee, hey, we want this. And some of them is because you can even automate like the 1099, or you can tie it into the payroll, all these other things that start to kind of apply into it.
Okay. My second question was for like the second half of your talk, where the IAM solution was in, and it was like sending the alerts to compliance or like interacting with Active Directory. How do those rules get implemented? So it sounds like what you're describing is that the IAM provider or vendor would tune those rules for you.
Your integrator might help, but it's also working side by side with your compliance manager. Or your compliance team to make sure it fits in with what policies you're trying to put into place. And there's probably some also concerns with maybe the security team would be in there. There's a lot of people who actually get to sit in on this because, like I said, it's a big thing that affects the company as a whole. So a lot of different parts of the department have to sit in and talk and discuss what is the direction you want. How do you want this to happen? And it really because it's all automated. Nobody sits there and says, okay, yeah, let this compliance report go forward because it meets our standard. You just set it and go.
And does that introduce kind of the similar false positive alert fatigue that other automated solutions in the security?
Well, that's where the tuning comes, and that's why I would say it's a long process. You can't just set it, forget it, just put that in place. It's not a blinky box.
Okay.
Like we've said, some of these blinky boxes people put into place, they're great, they're wonderful, powerful solutions. If you just don't put it in line or nobody tunes it, it becomes a bottleneck. It becomes another problem. It's this thing we have to do because compliance says we have to do it, but then there's no benefit. Nobody uses it. Nobody gets to see all the cool stuff that comes out of it. Compliance just gets a report, and IT hates it because it's this thing we have to deal with.
You mentioned some DLP kind of aspects of the IAM solution.
Some of them are kind of doing DLP-like stuff, but they start calling it more of a file management systems. They don't.
It's like behavioral monitoring of like file access at the domain level.
Okay, so not necessarily a FIM, but
No.
still. So does
Yeah.
your solution tie into other DLP products? Because I think those roles that you had outlined on one of the slides, where it can't handle PHI, can't hand PHI to other people in the same department. There's all these different qualifications for what types of data they can handle. Will your IAM solution feed a DLP product and use those roles?
It could probably, yes. From the couple of them I talked to, yeah, they will feed into it. Some of them also, integrators have been in there and talked to with SIM providers. If people wanted to go to the SIM solution. You can take the data out. It is what it comes down to. I actually have an encore I can talk about because I didn't know how long and how many questions, and because this is supposed to be a discussion. There's many, like you guys were supposed to just speak up because you've done that where you actually troll Brian at times or you trolled me. D-Tom's not here to do that. So, but I've got a couple more slides. We dive a little bit more into what does an IAM solution kind of look more on the technical side of things, more maybe on the dev side of things. But
along the same lines as yours, how does the IAM solution identify PII or confidential information that's being
so regex. Usually there's a regex provider on it. It's a heavy thing. It's a bit, you can write awful regexes that basically cause the machine to slow down.
So the IAM solution is inspecting the document, running it through, looking for regex matches only.
You can,
So happen to be.
well, each IAM provider could be a little different. It's not just regex. You can put pretty complicated things into it if you like.
So we'll do fingerprinting and metadata as well?
Yeah.
I'm just a fond, DLP solutions. So.
Yeah, it's not, some of them are not, don't want to go toward, I've asked them bold-faced, this sounds kind of like you're touching on a DLP solution, like, oh, no. They don't want to call it DLP. It's not supposed to be a replacement for DLP. You should have it in there. But it is supposed to be more something where it's trying to flesh out things a little bit more on where you can identify based on the directory side of things. It so happens because Active Directory ties so very much close into your permissions. That's a great time when you're doing that kind of evaluation to go, wait, should they be doing this? And should I take an action on this kind of thing to go stop this, or should I just report it? You have those options. You could just say, hey, just report it. It's cool. Let it be. And then some of them you're like, no, hard and fast, no. This is more than just like a minor violation. This is a full-on attack. Let's just stop it there.
The way I've always thought about it is it's like a half step between SIM and other like similar security technologies. Anyone that's looking at log data, but it's looking more at behavior and everything from like a heuristic standpoint. Because what an IAM solution does, if it's done right, is give you some kind of context for what a baseline of normal activity looks like for any given person, role, group, whatever you configure it in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it just it gives you more extensible information across all of those different data sets that are generated out of those systems that like a traditional SIM or DLP technology or other in the IAM world more ancillary security technologies do. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah.
Does it use an actual AI engine to determine what all the behavior is?
Some of them are doing that where machine learning. Some of them are starting to bring that stuff online.
Are they doing it or are they saying they're doing it?
Depends who you ask.
There are really good analytics options out there, but I haven't heard them bundled with like an IAM type of solution. It's usually specifically tied to user behavior analytics.
So it's a bit difficult talking the entire breadth of it because everybody approaches identity a little bit differently. And some of them are a little bit more than, hey, we're a database that pulls stuff off of the LDAP, and then you can write more onto it. You can build out your own columns. And it's like, if you had a DBA, this would be great. How's this an IAM solution? It doesn't really seem to flesh it out entirely. Oh, you get to write all that in there. I got a coworker who basically deals with something like that, where it's like, pretty much fills in the rest of the portions of what do you want to do with it. And a lot of IAMs provide an API where, hey, maybe this thing doesn't do it, you've reached your limit, you can tie more things into it. You can tie your own actions into it. Write your crazy PowerShell that does, I don't know, some crazy magic you want it to do. So I can tell you right now, you don't want to build your own. I've heard people who tried building their own and it sucks. Used to work for a company that had their own kind of one, and it's like, oh, so we're onboarding you. It may take 2 weeks for your Active Directory to come online. How is this automated? Oh, no, it's automated. It just goes, to a different country and it goes in a queue. It sounds like a person actually does. Oh, no, a person doesn't do it. It sounds a lot like a person actually manually fills it in. So it's really gross oversimplification. It really comes down to is they pull a lot of this stuff off because you really don't want to mess with Active Directory. You don't want to touch that in any wrong ways. You will break things, and it will be a bad time. But it pulls groups, users, all kinds of great stuff out of your LDAP database, puts it in its own database of what have you, and then it has some mechanics. It sits there and works on it, has code on it. Now, a lot of times when you have a big, huge corporate company, you can't put this on a single server. You need to put it across. You need to span it out. So I showed you in that earlier diagram. These are all different little servers, and you kind of have to figure out on your company, do you guys put a lot more on the analytical engine, or do you do a lot more on spitting out reports? What have you? You got to figure out what's the right size for you. I've grilled a lot of them, like, hey, do you have some kind of best practices? No. We have a build guide, and it's really kind of incomplete. It gives you a general idea for a company roughly your size, but then you kind of have to take it the next maybe 80% of the way from there.
So that's actually a question I have. So do you think, from your perspective, is a well-defined role-based access control program a necessary precursor to getting the most out of an IAM solution, or do you think they're not related?
Question. If you walk into a company with full entitlements, what do you do?
Yeah, I think it is. Then again, it also depends. What does your company do? But yeah, usually these gigantic corporations you have going over 20,000 people or something like, yeah, you probably want this.
Well, and that's what I'm thinking. Because I deal with IAM with my clients, but I don't directly implement these solutions usually. I'm just helping them determine what they end up putting in place and then kind of guiding what they do with it after. So it's interesting hearing about it from this perspective, because if you didn't have role-based access and you had 30,000 employees, how do you even begin to filter that down?
Yeah.
To interrogate the network? Yeah, exactly.
Can you imagine 30,000 employees and you are doing this all through Active Directory? Wow, you've got a whole department inside of your department that just deals with Active Directory.
Would it show you the mode if I said I've known bigger companies that do it that way? Right. Yeah, they have entire teams that are just dedicated to that, doing it manually.
Yeah, just adding somebody, and I can't.
Yeah, crazy amount of teams.
So that's the question, though. When you drop that thing in, you come to a new company, you drop that in, you got to interrogate their Active Directory.
Yeah.
Does it then build 3 reports, like, hey, this is where you have us?
So
Show me Bob, he's got access to the whole damn thing.
yeah, so some of them you'll sit there and you'll try to go group by group or piece by piece to try and figure out. There's that whole evaluation period where you sit there and go through over provisioning. You try and scale back and trying to figure out what is it you actually really need before you even start putting in place of everything else. That's why it's a monumental task. There's this whole part where you try to get your Active Directory under control, try and undo all the mess that's been there for years. Yeah. Now, there are some of them where they'll provide that machine learning, or just will do all that. Though, how many people are comfortable with just this machine learning algorithm going through and changing all your permissions without anyone getting involved in it?
When you walk into a company, like you mentioned 30,000 or even 20,000 that has entitlements and no real role-based access control, how many people on your team have to deal with that to be able to set up the IAM system? Like how long does it take?
I've only been with the company for about 5 months. So I haven't, to be all honest, I haven't been into that. I'm going through the whole training process on it. But from what I heard, when you're dealing with something that big, I think we've got like a 10,000 employee company we're working with right now that I got to see size on it. It's probably like a 3-person team, and they're full on. And they basically just sit there on site, and a lot of it is talking to people, meetings, getting the right people in the right room, discussing this before there's anything that even gets implemented in it. And yeah, honestly, it's really different for each kind of company, because each one of them wants to approach it in a different way. And sometimes you have to temper their thoughts, but it's probably going to take you about a year to get something in place and get going on it before you start doing the onboarding process. Then again, it also depends on how messed up is your Active Directory. Is it a giant nightmare, cobweb of permissions? It might be longer.
And how willing are they
Yeah, and it's also how many contractors are you willing to pay for? Because with enough money, all your problems go away. You just throw the entire company at it. Bam! Oh yeah, we're gonna solve this problem right away. Something like that. So, as I said, this looks simple. Right there, gross oversimplification, but it's really far from it. Like I said, it ties into so many critical pieces of how the company works. There's more than enough work in just kind of tuning it. I have to put the obligatory pie chart in there. It's a pie chart. Pie chart. Now, and so there are a lot of companies that have an IAM solution, and there are a lot of times, I've heard enough cases where they have an IAM solution, but it's that blinky box, or someone stood it up and then did not really set it up correctly, or did not sit there with the customer to figure out what worked for them, and then nothing works, or bad things happen, and the company has a serious consideration of just turning this thing off because it's breaking the company. We can't hire anybody. We can't seem to fire anybody. That's a nightmare scenario. Oh, you're fired, but you have to stay here because we need to watch you because we can't kill your credentials. Please don't hack us. I had to put a little yeet in there. So yeah, many of them are likely not tuned, and many of them are just there, in place. Spend millions of dollars on it, blinky box, not doing anything. So that's all I've got. That was 150 slides, guys.
Good job.
Hey,